Today we are going to see what if Sam Winchester's jealousy hid a darker truth. So let's get started. The motel room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and old carpet, which was pretty standard by now. Dean sat at the tiny round table, boots propped up, rifling through the local paper. Sam leaned against the dresser, laptop open, frowning at the screen. I stepped out of the bathroom, toweling my hair, and glanced between the brothers. So, what's got you both looking like someone stole baby? Dean flicked the paper toward me. 2 unexplained deaths in the last week. Both young, both locals. No signs of forced entry. Cops are scratching their heads. Sam tapped at his laptop. And get this, both victims were drained of blood, but there's no sign of wounds. Medical examiner says, massive blood loss of unknown origin. I grimaced. Vampires. Could be, Sam agreed, but the descriptions don't add up. No signs of feeding, no black eyes, nothing obvious. Just dead. Dean grunted. So it's weird, which means it's our problem. And lucky us it's in upstate New York. Practically your backyard. My eyebrows shot up. Wait, what? Sam glanced over at me, half smiling. Yeah, town's about 20 minutes from where you grew up. Sound familiar? I walked over, looking at the screen. The town name flashed in the article's headline, and my chest tightened. Memories stirred old streets, high school hangouts, faces I hadn't seen in years. Yeah, I said slowly, voice quieter. It's familiar. Dean smirked. Well, look at that. A hometown hunt. The local diner still makes those disgusting milkshakes you used to rave about. I shot him a look. They were not disgusting. Sam closed his laptop with a decisive snap. All right, we'll head out in the morning. Talk to the sheriff, check the scene. If it is vampires, we'll know soon enough. Dean stretched and tossed the paper aside. Great. Small town, creepy deaths, suspicious circumstances. Should be easy. I muttered under my breath. That's what you always say before everything goes straight to hell. Dean grinned. Yeah, well, keeps life interesting. I didn't reply. Instead, I glanced back at the town's name again and a nervous twist settled in my stomach. I had no idea that heading back there meant running straight into someone I thought I'd left behind forever. The three of us had just finished talking to a deputy when we stepped out of the small town station into the late afternoon sun. I was half distracted, replaying the interview in my head, when I heard someone call my name. Emily. I stopped in my tracks, frowning as I turned toward the voice. A man was standing a few yards away, dirty blonde hair catching the light, blue eyes sharp and unmistakable even after all these years. His freckles made him look just a little like the boy I remembered, though the rest of him, confident stance, squared shoulders, casual grin, felt older. Different. My stomach did a weird flip. Stephen. He broke into a wide smile, walking toward me. I knew it was you. Same brown hair, same eyes. Man, I haven't seen you since what, high school? Dean muttered under his breath. Well, this just got interesting. Sam shot him a look, but I was too busy blinking at the unexpected blast from my past. Yeah, I managed, forcing a smile. It's been a while. Stephen chuckled. Guess some things never change. You still get that deer in the headlights look when you're surprised. His tone was teasing, confident in a way he never was as a shy, awkward teenager fumbling his way through jokes. I felt my cheeks warm. And you still can't resist pointing it out, I said, slipping back into that old, familiar banter almost without meaning to. Stephen laughed, a low, easy sound that surprised me. He was always the shy one, quiet until he got comfortable, then obnoxious as hell, but this new version of him felt more put together. Outspoken, like he finally grew into himself. Dean's eyebrows lifted as he looked between the two of us. Well, aren't you just a regular reunion special? Sam's jaw tightened ever so slightly. He forced a polite smile, but I knew that look his suspicion was already stirring. Stephen's easy grin widened, like he was about to keep the conversation rolling, when I suddenly remembered I wasn't standing there alone. Oh, right, Stephen, this is my boyfriend, Sam, and his brother, Dean. I said it proudly, but there was a definite flicker of awkwardness in my tone. Stephen's eyebrows rose. Boyfriend, huh, like how we used to. Yes, Sam cut in smoothly. His voice just sharp enough to slice the air. He stepped closer, wrapping an arm around my shoulders in a move that felt unusually possessive. And we're very happy, aren't we, babe? The sudden shift made me blink, caught between surprise and confusion. Of course, I said automatically, forcing a bright smile. Stephen chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. Well, I guess that's good. Really good. Maybe we could. I don't know, catch up sometime. Just see how you've been. I hesitated a beat before nodding politely. Yeah, maybe. Cool. Stephen gave me one last small smile before backing away. Clearly sensing the tension, he disappeared down the street, leaving behind a silence that feels heavier than it should have. Dean was the first to break it, lips twitching. Well, wasn't that a soap opera? Sam's arm was still around me, his jaw tight. He cleared his throat and let go, shifting his weight. What? He just came out of nowhere. I don't trust him. Dean smirked knowingly. Right, you don't trust him. That why you just staked your claim like a jealous linebacker? Sam shot his brother a glare. I'm not jealous. I'm suspicious. There's a difference. Dean leaned back on his heels, smug as ever. Yeah, sure, Sammy, whatever helps you sleep at night. I glanced between them, confused but trying not to smile. Sam looked about 2 seconds from storming off, and Dean looked like he was having the time of his life. The Impala's headlights cut through the night as the three of us headed back to the motel. The drive was unusually quiet, Dean drumming his fingers against the steering wheel. Sam staring out the passenger window like he's replaying every word of the earlier encounter. I sat in the back, feeling the silence like a weight pressing down. Finally, Sam spoke. There's something off about him. Quote. Dean glanced sideways. Who? Stephen. He's just some guy, Sam. No, Sam insisted, turning slightly in his seat. He was too friendly, like he was trying to cover something up. You saw the way he acted like he already knew what we were doing here. Dean snorted. Pretty sure what he saw was his ex with a new guy, and he got awkward. Not everything's a monster in disguise, Sammy. I shifted in the backseat. I didn't notice anything weird about him. Sam twisted around to look at me, his eyes sharp. Exactly. That's what bothers me. He's good at hiding it. I frowned, guilt prickling at my chest. Was there really something I missed? Or was Sam just reading too much into it? Dean caught my expression in the rearview mirror and shook his head. Don't let him drag you into this, Emily. He's just jealous that Prince Freckles is still carrying a torch for you. Sam's jaw tightened. I am not jealous. Dean smirked. Sure you're not. Sam leaned back in his seat, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Look, I don't care about who he was to her. I care about this case. And something about him doesn't add up. The car went quiet again, tension thick in the air. I stared at the passing lights outside the window, torn. I wanted to believe Sam was just being cautious, but Dean's teasing dug at me too. And the worst part, deep down, I wasn't sure who's right. The rest of the drive was filled with strained silence, broken only by Dean muttering under his breath, suspicion, denial, tomato, tomato. The next day, Sam, Dean, and I were knee-deep in the case. A string of violent accidents in town all tied back to the same urban legend, a restless spirit bound to a cursed object. The lore was messy, pointing in too many directions, I spent the morning interviewing witnesses. Everywhere Elle turned, Stephen somehow kept popping up. At the library, he happened to be there dropping off books. At the diner, he was sitting 2 tables away, waving sheepishly when our eyes meet. When I hit the local historical society to dig through records, he showed up again, volunteering. Dean muttered under his breath as the three of us headed back to the car, man. If I didn't know better, I'd think this guy was your groupie. Sam, already on edge, snapped, or he's hiding something. Dean grinned wickedly. Or you're just jealous. Sam shot him a glare that could curdle milk. I'm not. He stopped himself, jaw tight, before shoving his long legs into the car and slamming the door harder than necessary. I was left standing outside for a second, flustered. Dean raised an eyebrow at me like see. Before getting in the driver's seat. That night at the motel, after Dean stepped out to grab food, I finally cornered Sam. Sam, my voice was gentle but firm. He looked up from the laptop, still brooding. Be honest with me, are you jealous of Stephen? Sam's head jerked up like I just accused him of something awful. No, I'm not. His voice was sharper than he meant it to be. This isn't about him, Emily. It's about the case. He keeps showing up where he doesn't belong. That's not normal. I crossed your arms, studying him. Sam, it sounds like jealousy. And you don't need to be. I don't have feelings for him anymore. You're the one I want. For a second, his expression softened, but then his frustration boiled back up. This isn't about us. I just don't trust him. His tone is defensive, too forceful. Before I can say more, Sam pushed back his chair and stood. I just need some air. Without another word, he stormed out, leaving the door rattling behind him. I was left sitting there, torn between guilt and frustration, wondering if maybe both brothers were right, Sam's instincts and Dean's teasing. The motel room featuring too quiet without Sam. I stared at the laptop, then the door, guilt settling heavy in my chest. I hadn't meant to accuse him of jealousy, not like that. I just wanted honesty, but instead, I'd pushed him away. An idea sparked. Sam always had his nose buried in lore, case files, newspapers, nothing that gives his brain a break. Maybe if I found him something different, a normal book, he'd see I was trying. Something that said, I know you, I care. The library was nearly empty when I arrived, the fluorescent lights humming against the quiet. I headed for the fiction shelves, running my fingers along spines. But a familiar voice broke the silence. Emily. Twice in one day. I turned, startled, to see Stephen leaning against the desk in a staff lanyard. What are you doing here? I asked, wary. He chuckled. Working. I cover night shifts sometimes. Guess I'm full of surprises. His grin was boyish, disarming. Want to sit for a bit? Just to catch up. I hesitated, but Sam was probably still cooling off. And maybe talking with Stephen would ease the knot in my chest. I nodded. At first, it was harmless, even nostalgic. We sat at one of the tables, swapping stories. Remember how Averio, Nay in class would groan and tell us to shut up when we started bickering over the stupidest things? I said, laughing despite yourself. Stephen grinned. Oh yeah, you always had to have the last word. It was embarrassing looking back. I admitted, smiling, but it was kind of fun. Like we could just go at it without a care in the world. I shook my head. Or the way you used to laugh at everything I said. The laughter faded. His smile lingered too long, eyes glinting strangely. Would you like to have that again? He asked softly, mockingly. My heart stuttered. Stephen. I stiffened, pulling my hand back when he laid his over mine. But his grip tightened. I'm sorry, Steve, but you know I have a boyfriend, I said firmly, voice a little shaky. He leaned closer, smirk curling. Boyfriend, please, you'd be better off with me. The grin sharpened, cruel around the edges. I mean, what's Sam got that I don't? He doesn't even trust you enough to let you talk to me without throwing a fit. Anger sparked, snapping me out of the unease. No, don't. I yanked my hand free and stood abruptly. I should go. I turned, but he grabbed me hard, yanking me back. Panic rose as he pushed close, breath hot on my face. His grip like iron. Let go. I fought, shoving at him, voice sharp. Stephen, let go. Then his eyes flashed black. The smirk that spread across his face was no longer Stephen's. It was cold, cruel. Oh, sweetheart, Stephen's not home right now. My stomach dropped. Demon. He forced himself against me, and I thrashed, reaching for the one thing I always carried. With a desperate hand, I flung holy water into his face. The liquid sizzled, steam curling as he screamed, clawing at his skin. Ag, you're gonna regret that, bitch. I didn't hesitate. The demon knife flashed in my grip, slashing across his side. He snarled, stumbling, but I used the moment to slam my fist into his jaw and broke free. Adrenaline blazing, I sprinted out into the cold night, breath sharp in my lungs. The echo of his scream followed me into the darkness. The streets were quiet, cold air pressing against Sam as he walked, still uneasy about Stephen. Dean caught up to him, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. A smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Sammy, you look like a cat that just saw a cucumber, Dean said, teasing, but his tone softened. What's going on? Sam ran a hand through his hair. Hesitating. It's I don't know. Seeing Stephen again it made me think. I kept comparing myself to him. Wondering if he knew Emily better back then. If he understood her in a way I haven't yet. Dean's smirk faded, replaced by that serious look only a big brother could pull off. Sam, listen to me. You're her boyfriend. You are the one she chose. Doesn't matter who she dated years ago. Doesn't matter what you think he knew. You're the guy in her life now, and that's all that counts. Sam's shoulders slumped, the tension in his jaw easing slightly. Yeah, I know. I guess part of me felt jealous, even if I didn't want to. Dean rolled his eyes but placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. Natural, human, you're allowed to feel it. But you don't let it rule you, you hear? Go back to her, talk to her, she's not a stranger, Sammy. A small, grateful smile cracked Sam's face. Thanks, Dean, now get your butt back to the motel, Dean said, shoving him gently toward the direction of their room. Before I change my mind and drag you back myself. The motel felt unnaturally quiet when Sam walked in. He expected to You in the kitchen are lounging on the bed, but a figure in the lounge drew his attention. A man sat casually, legs crossed, smiling too easily. "Stephen?" Sam asked, confused. The man smirked, but something was off. His eyes flickered black for just a heartbeat before returning to their usual icy blue. "Hey, Sam," he said, voice smooth, almost too smooth. "I was just waiting for you. What the hell are you doing here?" Sam demanded. Before Sam could step closer, Stephen's smile twisted, and suddenly the shadow behind those familiar features wasn't human anymore. His eyes went fully black, a sinister smirk spreading across his face. "I'm not really Stephen," the demon said, voice low and chilling. Sam's instincts screamed. He lunged forward, but a sharp motion and a sickening thud later. Darkness claimed him as he crumpled to the floor. The demon grabbed him with terrifying strength, dragging him toward the door. "You're coming with me," it hissed, teeth bared in a cruel grin. Panic surged through Sam's veins. But before he could struggle, the world faded into unconsciousness. The cold night air whipped past me as I sprinted down the streets, heart hammering in my chest. Up ahead, I saw Baby parked outside a diner, the headlights cutting through the darkness. Dean was coming out, carrying a brown paper bag. "Dean," I yelled, relief flooding through me as I ran toward him. He froze mid-step, eyes widening the instant he saw me. The bag slipped from his hands, tumbling to the pavement as he caught me in a firm, protective embrace. My sobs hit him hard, and he hugged me tighter. His voice filled with horror. Whoa, what's going on? What the hell happened?" I pulled back just enough to look at him, tears streaking my face. "Stephen attacked me, but it wasn't really Stephen, it was a demon, Dean. He's possessed." Sam was right, he's a monster. Dean's jaw tightened. Should I just send Sam back to the motel? Dean immediately pulled out his phone and tried calling Sam. But it went straight to voicemail. His face darkened, panic flickering across it. "He's not answering. We've gotta get back there now." We jumped into Baby, Dean slamming. The door shut as he stomped the gas pedal. Tires screeched against the asphalt as we raced through the empty streets, every second stretching into an eternity. When we arrived at the motel, my stomach dropped. The door was ajar, signs of a struggle evident, chairs knocked over, a lamp shattered, and streaks of blood on the carpet. I froze, fear and guilt coiling in my chest. "Stephen, he took him," I whispered, voice trembling. Dean's hands clenched on the steering wheel. "All right, first things first, we stay calm. Panic won't help Sam." I swallowed hard, nodding. "His phone isn't here, he must still have it with him." Dean's eyes flicked toward me, determination hardening his expression. "Then we track it. That's our lead." With that, we set to work, fingers flying over our phones and tracking devices. Every beep and buzz sent a jolt of hope and fear through me, and I realized we were running against time. Sam was out there, in the hands of a demon, and the clock was ticking. Sam's eyes fluttered open, but the world spun around him. His wrists burned where thick chains bit into his skin, and a rough cloth gag muffled his voice. He could barely move, the chain holding him taut against the wall of the dimly lit room. A shadow shifted in front of him. The demon Stephen, or what Stephen had become, stepped into the flickering light. A cruel smirk twisted his features, his eyes glinting black in the darkness. Well, look who's awake," the demon purred, circling Sam slowly. "Your girl still remembers me, doesn't she? I can see it in her eyes. And now, you're mine, all mine." Sam hissed through the gag, struggling against the chains, his shoulder stinging from a fresh twist of the knife the demon had lodged there. Pain shot through him, but he bit down on the urge to scream. Forcing himself to stay silent, the demon leaned in close, his breath hot against Sam's ear. "I'm going to use you as leverage, you know. She'll do anything to get you back. And I'm going to enjoy every second of it." Sam's glare burned through the darkness, pure hate shining in his eyes. His fist strained against the chains, his jaw tight with defiance. "Do your worst," he seemed to say with his eyes alone. "You're not breaking me." The demon chuckled darkly, stepping back, savoring the fear and fury radiating from Sam. "Oh, I'm just getting started." The rumble of Baby's engine filled the night as Dean and I raced down the empty roads toward the abandoned warehouse. The streets blurred past, a haze of streetlights and shadows. I gripped the edge of my seat, heart hammering, and Dean's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I should have, Dean said quietly, breaking the tense silence. "I should have spent more time listening to Sam instead of teasing him about Stephen. I shouldn't have brushed off his instincts." I swallowed hard, keeping my eyes on the road ahead. I shouldn't have accused him of being jealous. I made it worse by questioning him instead of trusting him. Dean glanced at me for a fleeting second, guilt flashing in his eyes. We'll make it right. He'll forgive us once we get him back. I nodded firmly, a fire igniting in my chest. Yeah, we'll get him back. And nobody hurts my Sam and gets away with it. Dean's jaw tightened, determination hardening his features. Exactly. Knob. Audie messes with my little brother and lives. And you. I met his gaze, resolute. Anyone who hurts my Sam dies. Simple as that. The warehouse loomed ahead in the distance, dark and foreboding, and I felt my pulse quicken. Whatever Stephen or the demon inside him had planned, we were ready. Together. Sam's head lolled slightly to the side, his lips split, nose dripping, and a thin sheen of sweat covering his bruised face. He was exhausted, barely keeping his eyes open, but he refused to break. His hands were bound tightly, wrists chafing, and the gag pressed against his mouth made it nearly impossible to breathe easily. The demon smirked at him, amusement glinting in eyes that weren't quite Stephen's. Nothing life-threatening, not yet, it said casually, gesturing toward the growing bruises and blood. That comes later. Sam's chest heaved, trying to steady his breath, and if he could have spoken, he would have spat, "Go to hell." Well, nothing, the demon said, stepping closer, circling him like a predator. Not surprising. I've heard rumors about the mighty younger Winchester, the boy who was supposed to be our king, but it's nothing like seeing it in person. Sam's muscles tensed as the words sank in. But he couldn't respond. He could barely keep his head upright, every nerve screaming in protest. The demon chuckled, shaking its head. I hear it took Lucifer years to break you. It leaned closer to Sam, whispering cruelly, "Looks like our girl is here to save you. She can try, but I'm not letting either of you go so easily. I really wanted to hear you scream before you die, but don't worry. I'll be close enough to hear you if you somehow find the strength. And I'll be sure to speak loud enough so you can hear what I'm saying to her." Before Sam could even shift in his bonds, the demon roughly shoved the gag back into his mouth. It laughed a high, cruel sound that echoed off the walls and strode from the room, leaving Sam alone with his pain, his rage, and the sound of the distant approaching footsteps outside. "So you remember the plan?" Dean asked, gripping the salt shotgun in his hands, his jaw tight with focus. "Yeah," I replied, loading more vials of holy water into my belt. "I'll go in the front and distract it long enough for you to sneak in the back, find Sam, free him, and get him out. Then I splash him with holy water and we fight like hell," I added, half joking at the end. Though my hands were steady and sure. Dean gave me a look, concerned. "Perfect, but you sure you wanna do this? You don't have to, you know." I straightened my shoulders, determination hardening my voice. "We all gotta face our demons, Dean, literal and metaphorical. Besides, mess with Sam and you die, right?" He nodded slowly, pride and worry flickering across his face. "All right, kid, let's do this." I hated that we had to go back inside, face both Stephen and the demon again, but as soon as I thought about what they'd done to Sam, there was no hesitation. I felt the same fire and determination I had when I first realized I would never let anyone hurt him. We gave each other a final nod and headed in, me taking the front, keeping my senses sharp, and Dean heading to the back, ready to save his little brother. The demon's laughter echoed off the cold, concrete walls as I stepped forward, keeping my gaze steady despite the venom in his words. "You really thought you could come alone?" it hissed, circling me. "Without me, you'll always be alone, just like you were back when you were a scared little girl." I didn't flinch. "Well, there's one thing you don't know about me." "Oh, and what's that?" it sneered, eyes glinting with malice. I slipped my hand into my back pocket and felt the familiar weight of the holy water bottle. With a smooth motion, I opened it without him noticing. "I'm not alone anymore," I shouted, flinging the water into his face. His scream of pain was music to my ears, the steam rising as it burned his demonic form. I didn't waste a second. I pulled out the rock-salt handgun and fired, the rounds connecting and slowing him down, alerting Dean somewhere in the building. When my gun clicked empty, he laughed, mocking me. "Looks like you're out of ammo," he taunted. I dropped the gun, spread my arms wide, and made a daring, defiant gesture. "Well then, come and get me." He lunged, snarling, and I ran straight toward the room where Sam and Dean were waiting. The demon chased me until he slammed to a halt, eyes wide in shock. Dean's devil's trap, carefully drawn in chalk, held him in place. "You didn't really think I'd come here alone with nothing but a bottle of holy water and one gun full of salt, did you?" I said incredulously, breathing hard but unshaken. You bitch. The demon roared, straining against the trap. You will always belong to me. One way or another, I'll find a way back, and I'll kill you all. Even if I have to claw my way out. I lifted my chin defiantly. Go ahead, 'cause I'm not afraid of you. Go ahead, guys, I yelled to Dean and Sam, my heart pounding in anticipation. Dean and Sam began chanting the exorcism, their voices steady and powerful. The demon screamed, groaning in agony, as it was ripped from Stephen's body and dragged back to hell. The final, tortured shriek echoed and then abruptly ended, leaving only the heavy silence of the empty warehouse. A few minutes earlier, Dean crept down the darkened hallway, every sense on high alert. Through the cracked door at the end, he could hear the familiar voice Emily. But beneath it, a low, mocking hiss made his blood run cold. He knew he had to move fast. He pushed the door open just enough to peek inside and immediately wanted to puke. Sam was chained to the wall, his face bloodied and bruised, sweat streaked across his temples. His chest rose and fell heavily. Each breath labored, yet he still managed a flicker of relief at seeing Dean. Sammy, Dean whispered, urgency in his voice, and ran forward. He fumbled with the locks, fingers moving quickly over the metal cuffs. Dean, Sam rasped, exhaustion, pain, and relief all mixed into one voice. Yeah, Sammy, I'm here. It's gonna be okay, Dean said, keeping his voice calm and steady. Though his mind was racing. You okay? I'll live, Sam huffed, his eyes narrowing in frustration and worry. Where's Emily? She's okay, Dean reassured him, keeping that thing distracted while I get you out of these. Quote, what? Sam gasped, horror washing over him as he realized what the demon's plan might be. Dean didn't have time to answer before gunshots rang from the other room. That's the signal, he muttered, whipping out a piece of chalk. He began drawing a devil's trap on the floor, precise and fast. Sam, despite his weakness, did his best to assist, holding the chalk steady and passing supplies. Just as the final lines of the trap were completed, the door burst open and Emily came running in, the demon hot on her heels. It charged forward, only to slam against the chalk lines and freeze. Caught in the trap, Dean and Sam exchanged a quick glance, relief, determination, and adrenaline flooding through them. They were ready, the demon was gone, and for a moment, the room was still except for our heavy breathing. Stephen collapsed onto the floor, gasping, his body finally his own again. His wide eyes darted between all of us, clearly shaken, terrified, and confused. But even in his fear, there was a glimmer of the Stephen I remembered. Stephen, I asked hesitantly, kneeling beside him. He let out a long, shaky sigh of relief. Emily, I am so sorry. That thing inside me, it just I don't know what. His words stumbled, unsure, apologetic. I reached out and touched his arm gently. It was a demon. You were possessed. That's not who you are. I explained briefly about what we do. Our lives hunting monsters, protecting people. He listened, wide-eyed, horrified but unable to deny what he'd seen firsthand. I was awake for some of it. The people he things I did to you, his voice broke. It was awful. I'm so sorry, Emily. I never meant to hurt you. I gave him a small, reassuring smile. I know. Demons feed on what you desire, fear, or dread most. And they use that weakness to gain control and make you do terrible things. Things you never thought you could do. But it wasn't you, Stephen. You don't need to feel guilty. He paused, swallowing hard. I guess when I saw you, I wanted to connect but I was too scared, given how we left things. You think it fed on that fear? Probably, I said gently. And your desire to be with me again had just gave it an excuse to wreak havoc. Sam, standing a little behind me, felt a pang of old jealousy stir in his chest, realizing Stephen's feelings for me weren't gone, they were just complicated, tempered by time and circumstance. I helped Stephen to his feet, steadying him as he tried to process everything. A faint, hesitant smile tugged at his lips. Guess I always knew you were one of a kind. Even if I was too dumb to see it back then. I'm glad you're happy now with someone who really deserves you. His eyes flicked briefly to Sam, and then back to me. Thank you, I said softly, smiling back. Maybe things would have been different if we stayed together, but I wouldn't change where I am now. For a few quiet seconds, we just looked at each other, a bittersweet understanding passing between us. Then he nodded, expressing his gratitude one last time. Thank you for freeing me. For everything. He turned and walked away, leaving us with heavy hearts but also a sense of closure. Are both the past and the chaos of the night. Stephen carried a secret with him now, one that would haunt him, but he was alive. That was what mattered. Once Stephen was gone, I too ran to Sam and saw just how beaten up he really was. Without thinking, I ran to him and hugged him tightly. "Are you okay? And don't say, 'I'm fine,'" I said fiercely, already knowing that was his knee-jerk response. He tried to laugh despite the pain. "I'm okay," he said, deliberately changing the word to tease me. I playfully slapped his good arm in frustration. "Really? You're okay? Really? I'm okay," he repeated, looking me straight in the eyes. "Yeah, well, you will be. Let's get you back to the motel so we can patch you up," Dean said, giving him a gentle push toward the exit. Sam rolled his eyes but let us guide him, leaning slightly on both of us in case he stumbled from dizziness. Back at the motel, Dean grabbed the first aid kit from Baby's trunk while I went to the freezer for an ice pack. Together, we took care of Sam like mothers fussing over a very stubborn child. Sam grumbled through most of it, but we told him to be quiet. Dean cleaned his lip and the cuts on his face with alcohol and gauze, muttering apologies every time Sam winced. "All right, all done. Now lie down so I can check your shoulder," Dean said. Sam, too exhausted to fight, just laid down. I sat by his head, rubbing his hair and holding the ice pack against his face, already seeing the bruises begin to bloom. Dean examined the shoulder. "Not too bad, but this is gonna need stitches, kiddo." Sam groaned. Dean sighed. "I know. Here, take these, they'll help with the pain," he said, handing over some pills. Half an hour later, Sam was starting to get droopy from the good stuff Dean had given him. His shoulder was stitched and bandaged, and I was still sitting by him, stroking his hair comfortingly. I wasn't sure who I was comforting more, him or myself. I had to look away as Dean worked on Sam's shoulder. But I never left his side. I held his hand through every wince, letting him squeeze mine when the pain became too much. It was the least I could do after everything that had happened because of me. Later that night, exhausted from everything that had happened, we all headed to bed. Sam and I shared one bed while Dean took the other, as always. I curled into Sam's side, my back pressed against his chest, holding his hands like if I let go, he might be ripped away from me again. At some point during the night, I woke with a start, sweat clinging to my skin, a quiet gasp escaping me. I looked around, relieved to see them both still there, sleeping peacefully. Still shaken, I decided to go sit outside for a few minutes, needing some fresh air. A few minutes later, Sam appeared, quietly shutting the door behind him. "Hey, there you are." I was worried for a second, he said softly, sitting down beside me. "What are you doing out of bed?" "You should be resting," I said, my voice tired. "So should you," he replied, giving me a small, reassuring smile. I scoffed. "I didn't get tortured by a demon today," I said sarcastically. "Maybe not physically," he said, "but mentally, you might have. And besides, it's not the first time I've had a run-in with a demon or been held captive," he tried to joke. I didn't laugh, just continued to stare at the stars. We sat in silence for a moment before he said softly, "Is that why you're out here? Look at me, I'm fine. I'm right here." He grabbed my hands gently, forcing me to meet his gaze. "It was my fault, Sam," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "If I had just listened to you, and hadn't made you storm off, you wouldn't have been taken." He scoffed lightly. "You're starting to sound like Dean," he teased. "It's not funny, Sam. I could have lost you today," I said, my breathing starting to pick up. Ever since Sam came back from hell, stress like this sometimes triggered panic attacks. "Hey, calm down," he said seriously, grabbing my hands again. "Breathe, I'm right here." He took a few deep breaths, encouraging me to follow his lead, and slowly, I did. After a few minutes, I leaned my head against his chest, exhausted. "I'm sorry," I whispered, sobs racking my chest. "I just can't stand the thought of losing you." "Hey, shush, it's okay," he soothed, rubbing my back and rocking slightly. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you." Once I calmed, he continued. "I can't stand the thought of losing you either. So when that demon told me he was after you, I panicked. But you know what I do when I feel like that." I shook my head. "I remind myself that you're strong, tough, and we're not alone. I've got you, Dean, Saz, and Bobby, and so do you." He kissed the top of my head. "What happened today was not your fault. Just because it was after you doesn't mean it was your fault." I sniffled. "But I should have known it wasn't him." "Why?" "Because you dated him over a decade ago." People change, and time makes things seem different than they really are. You can't blame yourself for not realizing that, he said gently. I chuckled softly. I didn't really think he'd change all that much, though. I told him about how Steven and I met in middle school, how I'd hated him at first because he bickered about everything, how in high school I decided to give him a chance, how it was one of my first relationships. And how I had been scared and unsure, which led to our breakup. I explained how the whole school thought I was a jerk for breaking his heart, and how long it took me to get over it. Sam listened through the entire story, never once interrupting, as he always did. I never really wondered what my life would have looked like if I stayed with him until today, I said, making him look at me. I smiled, easing any fear. I'm glad things turned out this way. I wouldn't trade you for anything. He returned my smile, brushing his hand over mine. Good, because I have you, and that's all I'll ever need. We leaned into each other for a few more minutes, letting the cool night air brush against us while our love kept us warm. How about we get back to bed? He finally said. We'll probably be heading out tomorrow morning, so we should get our rest. I nodded, letting him help me up, following him back inside to bed, grateful to finally be safe and together. The sunlight barely filtered through the thin motel curtains when the three of us woke up. I was still curled against Sam's chest, his arm heavy around me, when I noticed Dean already up, packing his duffel on the other bed. His movements were quieter than usual, almost thoughtful. Sam groaned and sat up slowly, wincing as his shoulder protests. Dean immediately stopped what he was doing and turned to him. Hey, take it easy, huh? Don't rip those stitches already. Sam gave him a small smirk. Relax, I'm fine. Dean hesitated, then sighed and sat on the edge of the bed across from us, rubbing a hand over his jaw. Listen, Sammy, about yesterday. You were right. Sam blinked at him, surprised. What? Dean shrugged like it's no big deal, but I could tell by the way his eyes fell. Ickered to the floor that this wasn't easy for him. I should have listened to you. Instead of brushing you off, I went in half-cocked, and it damn near cost us. You've got good instincts, and he exhaled. I'm sorry. Sam studied him for a long moment, his expression softening. Dean, he shook his head. You don't have to. Yeah, I do, Dean cut in firmly. I'm your brother. I'm supposed to have your back. Not treat you like you're still that kid following me around. You were right, and I should have trusted you. Sam smiled faintly, that same forgiving warmth he always showed his brother. You don't need to worry. I already knew you meant well. And I forgive you. Dean huffed out a laugh, shaking his head. You're too damn good at that, you know that. Forgiving me all the time. That's what brothers do, Sam said simply. And the weight between them finally eased. Dean stood, clapping Sam lightly on his good shoulder, and muttered, Don't make me say it twice. I watched the exchange with a soft smile. Heart full as always at how, no matter what, the Winchesters always found their way back to each other. I yawned and stretched, effectively breaking up Sam and Dean's chick flick moment. Dean shot me a look that said he was grateful for the interruption. What time is it? I mumbled. Too early, Sam groaned dramatically, falling back onto the bed beside me with a heavy oomph that made the frame creak. Dean smirked. That's what happens when you two stay up half the night. You know, if you guys really wanted some privacy for fun time, you could have gotten another room. Dean, we both warned in unison, glaring at him. All right, he said, holding up his hands in mock surrender. But the teasing faded quickly as he studied me, his expression softening. But seriously, kid, you feeling okay? He already knew what happened last night. My panic attacks weren't anything new to him, and he's seen firsthand how bad they could get. Sam sat up again, looping his arms around me in gentle support. I took a breath before answering. I'm okay, I said quietly. Dean didn't push, he just gave me a short nod that said more than words could. Then he cleared his throat, shaking off the weight in the room. All right then, enough with the sappy stuff. Bags packed, because there's a nest of vamps 2 towns over that isn't gonna gank itself. Sam and I shared a fond look, then grabbed our gear. We got dressed, ready, and by the time the 3 of us headed out the door, we were battered but stronger, bound tighter than ever. Together, always together. The end.